All right. Today I want to talk about what I do. You know, I was at a event last night in Miami, and I kind of came up with, and I do this all the time, but I kind of came up with a new way or a new understanding of myself. Constantly evolving, so that's not strange for me to come up with a new way to describe myself. But last night I was at a program in Miami, which I thought was a film event, which it turned out to be more focused on acting. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm not an actor. I've taken classes for acting. Shout out to Tracy Moore Marable and the Spirited Actor. That was first, time I took kind of a professional, real acting class. I mean, I took a little bit in college. I remember being Muhammad Ali, but other than that, nah. And I was in plays. I guess who wasn't, but maybe there wasn't. Everybody was in a play. I played a donkey and then the old lady. So they were not leading roles, let's say that, in the church plays. So I'm stuck in traffic. I think there's an accident. Anyway, I came up with this new idea on how to describe myself. And listening to acting coach or actress explain, the importance of being professional and on set and what your role as an actor means to the production. Then I listened to a director talk to actors about the role, and the director was talking about, being a theater person, like Tyler Perry first, and doing stage plays. The question was, why do I need to pay you to be in my play? And what are you going to bring to the play? And that made me think, right? And I remember being a comedian or poet, show producer, which is different than being a comedian or a poet. And I was more than just a promoter. I used to put on my own shows. And I remember thinking, there was a couple of clubs that said, if you want to be on our stage, you gotta, sell 10 tickets, right? And that was important, But to me, those shows were just regular shows. They were workout shows. No guarantee on how the show would be. So if you paid to come to that show, you knew there was no reputation for the show. And that's how I felt. And I was like, now mind you, Caroline's on Broadway did that, but their showcase was even hard even to get on. So you had to audition just to get on their show. But thinking about that as it relates to film, I started to think, I do want my artists and actors to bring something to a show and to a film. I'm not always, looking for your Twitter followers, your Instagram followers, your social media presence, right? But maybe it is to bigger name actors or production companies. I know Tyler Perry used that when he put in a couple of bloggers that he put in Medea Boo. My son was like, oh, that person has a video Vine, and things like that. And, I respect that. So it's important. But then I also remember when I was putting, my comedians and sending Flo Mentos, shout out to Flo, on auditions, and I remember when I did my first movie, part of why I did it was, I told the production company, what do you call it, the directors and the distributor, that I was like, you got no-name actors in your shows, in your movies. I got comedians that do shows every night. If they tell people that they're in this movie, it's going to be big. Now, I thought that would happen. but it didn't happen the way I thought it was going to happen. A lot of them didn't even tell people they was in the movie even after they saw them in the movie. So they were kind of ashamed of it. I have no idea. Not many of the things I want to work out. However, in my second movie, I got it right. I got it better. And I think it turned around because I was more confident in the project. The other artists became confident in the project. And my poet, Shatara, comedian, Helena D. Lewis, Flo Mentals, all these guys, they really celebrated the picture. And not to mention, the picture did its job. And so I respect, you saying, what you're going to bring to the table if you're going to be in my film, but really, I don't necessarily want to depend on that. That's icing on the cake. An artist that has a bunch of followers and a credible name and all that, that's icing on the cake. What is really important for me is that you can act, is that you can do the job, right? I mean, because if you are a big name person, like no doubt, I saw Hassan Whiteside from the Heat, the Nick Cannon show the other night, and mind you, people will. He's a billable name, Hassan Whiteside, the center from Miami Heat, but if you can't act and you got millions of fans and you this big celebrity person and you can't act, sheesh, you become a liability. So that's my take on it. Now I'm going 6 minutes just explaining what I wanted to say. Dang, I'm long-winded. But I'm detailed and I'm thorough, so I'm very transparent. So that's also a good attribute. Anyway, it started me thinking of my cockiness that I need to have. Sometimes we have to drink our own juice. We got to celebrate ourselves. So I think of another conversation that I was having online, and it was a typing conversation, and it was talking about Brian, can't remember his name, last name, but he's the new writer for the upcoming Killmonger comic book series. And I said, yo, they need to consult me. I got a banging story for Killmonger. Now, I'm not dissing Brian's story. You know what I'm saying? I'm just bigging myself up. Yo, I got a good story. You know what I'm saying? It's like me as a show producer for comedy shows. I knew that I put together good comedians. I knew I put together banging poets. So it really didn't matter who was on my show. You knew it was going to be good because Jeff was putting it together. Jeff knew some people. So there was an element of it that was my own value, right? Because I'm not just a platform. I am a selective platform. You understand what I'm saying? So you might know the headliner, you may know the host, but you may not know the opening. You may not know the middle comedian. You know what I'm saying? Or the poet that's on the show. You know Jeff. So that's the value right there, and there is some selection to that. So now the other thing and how that translates to film is I'm the writer. I'm the producer. And I bring a value based on those elements as well. So as a writer, I stand in where writers stand, and that is writing books. I was telling the director, I was like, yo, dude, I hear you mention the writers. You know what I'm saying? And writers in the story is what we all coming together from. Distributors ain't saying, unless you Denzel or you Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie, they don't say, give me that James, movie. They say, give me the title. How does this title perform? Even with Denzel and them, they'll say, how did Equalizer do? They didn't say how did Denzel in 2017 do or 2016, whenever the Equalizer came out. They say, how did the Equalizer do? This title didn't do this. That Denzel was good in this story, no doubt. No doubt he was good in the story, but the story is a story and it needs to fire on its own. So in books, imagine you as a filmmaker, you don't have actors, you don't have special effects, tricky, fancy editing. All you have is a story. Could you make a living off that? How tight is your story? How strong is your story? That is what a writer is. A writer lives off of the story. We may attract people a little bit by the book cover, but ain't too many people, unless they're in a rush, buying a book only because of the cover. Now, mind you, cover is important, but they flip it over. They read that back cover. They get that peak of interest. They see that title on the cover. And if that title sounds hot, they're going to get into it. And the title is part of writing. Thinking of a good title, thinking of a provocative title that not only speaks to the person, the reader, it also speaks to the story. And that title becomes that bridge between the reader and the story. So if that title pops, then that reader says, yo, let me check that out. And if that story makes sense, then they like that book. You understand? And so I just think sometimes we undervalue the writer and the story. And that's through all of them. I mean, everything, even writers, I know we're going through this thing where they posting all these stupid or very fundamental titled urban street lit books, and a lot of people's laughing at it. Even the one guy made a little Vine video laughing, I slept with my sister's, best friend, or, father's, whatever, and the preacher's, wife, and she doesn't know. All those stupid things, are very simple, but at the end of the day, going back to the value of writing, the value of story, those things are speaking to a story that may sound like 40, 50,000 words of gossip, but it just speaks to the value and the importance of a story. I can't tell you how many times I feel these illustrations in a comic book are hot, but I'm not buying it because the story seems whack. I'm not buying comic books for a picture book. How many times do we have movies that we see at film festivals that never make it anywhere? Even with the biggest actors in them, there's nothing unique about it. Might as well call the movie Thursday. And then you ask people, how come you didn't see Thursday? Well, I saw Wednesday and Tuesday, and there was nothing different in Thursday. It was the same film, just a different day. That's how repetitive a lot of our films and bigger projects can be. You know what I'm saying? Well, video games have some other thing. They go with gameplay, and they have a whole lot of missions and stuff like that. But, again, even if you bring a good story to a video game, you can do the same Call of Duty arrangements. You can use the same platform. In fact, one of the guys was telling me that they were trying to do World of Warcraft, and they took these big investors, and they tried to do a bigger platform than World of Warcraft, but they couldn't finish it. So what they did, or finish it in time. So what they did was start cutting down their platform and offering it to other video games. So what they did was they took the dragon that they designed for World of Warcraft and offered it to another company who did what? Put a different story around it. Made it, not saying something like Evolve. All these video games that seem very similar. What separates them is not only is not really the gameplay, because they're all first-person shooters, but it is the story. That's what separates Injustice from Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Virtua Fighter. All of those fighter games, very much similar. There may be a different fatality or different kill, but what separates them is the characters, which are part of the story, and the story or the campaign. That's what separates the difference. So I don't know, guys. I just feel, and I'm going to build on this. I'm working on an event that will bring, you'll hear about it in the next couple of days, hopefully next week. I'm putting on an event that I'm inviting everybody to, that's going to bridge writers with illustrators with filmmakers in a way that we will all benefit, because it's very hard for a writer to break into comic books and even film. You know, how do you sell a film, a script if you're not anybody? You know what I'm saying? So how do you do that? We're going to talk about it. How do you break into comic books as a writer? It's very hard. You know, you got to actually pay an illustrator. You know what I'm saying? And that can be expensive. $100 a page, $2,000 for a book. You know, 20-something pages is a small comic book, so you end up paying for that. And then, you know, you may not get the best illustrator. What if you try to go less than that? You know, you getting a illustrator and that can't finish your book if you're trying to go over 20-something pages. So it's just ridiculous. Anyway, so I'm doing an event. I'm going to give you more details on it that's going to bridge that gap. This is Jeff Carroll, the sci-fi writer, filmmaker, idea man. All right. I just want to thank you for checking me out. All right. Peace.